अभी नहीं आया यार. Good evening, students. So let's get started with the session. So I hope I am audible. Can you please confirm if the audio is clear? It would be approximately an hour, 1 hour. We'll try to wrap it up within that. All right, thank you everyone. So let's get started with the session. So today's topic that we have for the session is, as you can see on the screen, tricks and techniques in the quantitative aptitude section. So as we all know, as far as the IPMAT Indore is concerned, Quant is one of the important sections. We have just two sections there, right? So Quant is like equally important as compared to the verbal ability section. So we will be talking about that section in particular, and besides IPMAT Indore, you get to see this section in every other test that you are planning to take this year, all right, this coming academic session. Now in this particular session, what I would basically be focusing on or talking about is, while focusing on quant, right, what are the things to be kept in mind? For example, one thing that definitely matters is the speed of calculation, the speed of interpretation. Second thing that is important is your accuracy. Like when you attempt a certain number of questions, you should also ensure if few of them are right, and thus that should result in higher score, right? That should result in better scores, right? Right now, let's say if I'm at score of 30, after practicing QA techniques, tricks a little bit, I should be able to reach at least till 40, 42, right? Slight improvement I'm saying. So that's the objective of today's session. Let's get started. So I'll quickly share the outline, basic outline that we have for today's session. So we will be starting with the importance of this section. I already told you that this is one of the important sections that we have in our test overall preparation. So we'll be talking about that. Second thing we'll be talking about is how do we improve our performance. So basically, what should be our learning technique as far as QA is concerned. For example, in VA, verbal ability, if you talk about, a lot of reading is involved. So similarly, here, what exactly is involved, we shall be talking about that. We'll also be talking under this heading, we'll be talking about the importance of test taking and also importance of, very important, revision. So math or quantitative ability is one of the most common dreaded subjects that students had while in school, right? I'm sure you would be also one of them, right? Who didn't like maths, right? Or who didn't understood math properly. But even if you didn't follow, one thing that you are absolutely certain about is in QA, in math, there is a definite need of revision. Now, somehow, by the time we come to this IPMAT preparation, right, after our 12th and all, we somehow tend to forget that. So I'll just try to remind you that again when we'll get there. Next thing is, how do we improve our performance? We shall just be quickly paying some attention, some discussing some points there. Like I'll be focusing on the concept we need to use, the tricks and techniques versus the traditional ways, right? So traditional way of learning learning the subject verse, you try to go, for example, if you go by the textbook way of solving, you go step by step, right? If you miss out on one of the steps, there would be some negative marking for that, right? Some negative marking for that. So if you compare that with the today's scenario of competitive exams, now over there the end answer matters. Now how did you arrive at the answer doesn't really matter. So this way it's very different. This preparation will be very different from your traditional learning that you had. Now after this, I also plan to take some examples. Of course, we'll not be solving all of them probably, but I'll try to show you each question with the purpose of having it there. I'll quickly be doing that. Lastly, we'll be looking at the overall, what is the thing that we have discussed, the final thoughts. That's it. I'll be opening it up for Q&A. So this is what we have for today's session. This is the basic outline. Let's get started. Now QA importance. So QA, as I have been saying, this is one of the most important sections that we have in the test, present in all the tests that you are planning to take. So you cannot avoid QA. You cannot avoid QA. ये आपको करना ही पड़ेगा. You'll have to go through it, right? You'll have to definitely learn this, do well in this section, right? You cannot avoid this. And as I was talking about some time back, board exams versus competitive exams. Now here only answer matters in the competitive exam, right? How did you arrive at the answer doesn't really matter. So thus there is no step marking concept, so to say, that we have in this particular medium of study. What do the examiners test? Right? Examinees se kya chahiye? What exactly are they looking for? So one thing that they are looking for is absolutely their strong concepts, strong fundamentals, conceptual understanding, not just rote. Second thing that they are testing you on in various exams is your logic, your logical ability, how well you think, how well you read, how well you understand. All these things are also tested when you go for any competitive exams. And see, many times students miss out on this aspect also. They miss out on this too, right? So you have to be careful about improving your logical ability, even though you are in quant. Even though you're learning mathematics, you should try to improve your logical skills. Very, very important, because many concepts in quant are based on that. Practical application of the concept under pressure, that's really, really critical, right? So under pressure, how do you perform? All right, because kai bar, what happens is, many times what happens is, you know the formula, you know how it works, but at that point in time it doesn't strike us because we are under tremendous pressure, right? Time management, one more thing that we'll be looking here is the time management. Is it really easy to manage time? All right, we shall be really, really careful about the time management aspect of the test, because if you end up spending a lot of time on questions that really are difficult, you are not using your time effectively out there. You're not being efficient out there, because if I talk about IPMAT Indore, we have 3 sections, and each section has a certain time that you can spend on that. Now, if you try to go beyond the time limit, you can't really expect to succeed in the test, right? So here, please understand the QA essay section, the QA MCQ section, and the VARC section. You need to spend sufficient time in all the 3 sections so as to do well. So this is the importance of QA, right? It's one of the most important sections you cannot ignore, right, during your preparation. Okay, learning techniques. Let's quickly look at this. So as you know, the quantitative aptitude is heavily dependent on these various areas. I'm just naming a few here. Arithmetic, algebra is there, geometry is there, numbers is there, modern maths like PNC, probability are there. There's so many areas, and covering so many areas, having good grip over these areas is really, really challenging at times, right? So one of the ways in which you can improve your grip over various areas is by, and one more thing before I get to what do we do about it, importance of building strong fundamentals. It is important, right? Because in your IPMAT exam, for example, questions will not be very direct. Like for example, generally you won't have questions like you apply a formula for a simple interest, you get your answer. Now the question given in IPMAT is generally not directly formula based. You need to have some level of basic understanding so as to crack that particular question. I'll show you some of them in today's session. You can give it a try. Learning various applications of a single concept. For example, if you talk about the concept of ratio, now the concept of ratio, the topic of ratio is not limited to only one chapter. It has its application in a topic like time and work, for example, time and distance, for example, right? So there are so many other topics also where this concept of ratio will become important. Similarly, there is percentage. So percentage is not limited only to profit and loss. Percentages will be important also in topics like average, mixture, allegation, simple interest, compound interest, for example, to name a few. Also, more so in the area of DI, which is also there in your IPMAT, data interpretation. So percentages become really, really important. just a few more to name: averages, quadratic equations also. These are single concept applicable in multiple areas. So that way, when you're learning a concept, you should not limit yourself only to that concept alone. You should also try to understand, by spending sufficient time, what all different areas will this particular concept be important. Quadratic equation can also be useful in the topic of special equations, for example, right? It will be useful there also. One more thing, one more important point that you have under this learning technique is regularly taking tests, right? You should be taking your tests regularly, both sectional as well as full length tests, because only when you sit in a test do you understand the pressure involved. See, right now, sitting in a class, right, sitting in the comforts of the home, you might not really feel the pressure. If I ask you a small question here at this moment, please try to answer this. I'll wait for a minute, okay? Minus, so on. What will be value of this series? Just take a minute, see if you can answer. I'm just trying to drive home a point that right now, maybe because you're really comfortable, you might be able to answer it. But tomorrow in the test, the same question will appear to be really, really difficult. What would be the answer for this? Okay, so what is the response? See, again, I'm not Ankan. Good. Good answer, Ankan. So let me just take this up. I'll not solve it fully, but I'll just give you a hint. Now, many a times you're not required to solve the actually given question. Now, sometimes you need to transform it into something easier, right? Just like what we do with our thoughts sometimes, our understanding sometimes. Even if the understanding in front of us is really, really big, suppose what you do, आप उसको break down करते हो, you break it down, right, into several smaller parts and then try to understand them. Same thing you try to apply here. Observe, if you take the first two terms, can you see, can you know square minus b square? So a square minus b square will be equal to what? A minus b into a plus b. We know the basic formula. What is a minus b? 50 minus 49, 1. A plus b will be 50 plus 49. Similarly, take these two together. A square minus b square again will be a minus b, which is 1 again. Please notice 48 minus 47 into a plus b. जिसको ये समझ आ गया, if someone is able to see this, the question is solved here. यहाँ पर over here, last thing, 2 square minus 1 square is 2 minus 1, which is 1, into 2 plus 1. So effectively, what do you see here? Please notice, this is nothing but sum of the first 50 natural numbers, isn't it? And we have a formula for that. I hope you know the formula. You can apply that, get the answer. Answer क्या होगा? 50 into 51 by 2. Sorry, it will be 1275 here. You got 1250, right? Yeah. Read my message, please. अंकन बाद में बात करते हैं यार, है ना? Let's discuss it at the end. Revision of all the important concepts, formulae, rules, properties, etc. is very, very essential. If I want to add one more, probably I'll add properties, right? So it's really important for us to regularly revise. Reason is there's so many things to cover as far as quant is concerned. So by the time you'll reach geometry, you tend to forget concepts from arithmetic. So by the time you reach permutation combination, you might already forget what you have discussed in numbers. So this way there is a problem involved with respect to this subject particularly, the quant. So thus regular revision is a must. Right? I hope we are clear with this slide. Let's quickly talk how do we improve our performance, right? So what are the various ways in which we can see visible improvement, right? For example, where was I last month versus this month? What are the various things that we can plan on doing? Now, the very first thing that we need to understand is how are we measuring our performance? Performance metrics. So, how are you measuring it? Is it on the basis of marks or your rank in the class or rank amongst the students who are taking a test, right? How are you measuring your performance? So, I have a small point here to mention. So, if you are focusing on this, it's good, but focusing only on this will not yield results. So if you are taking a test with the intention of scoring high only, you're not going to score high. You need to understand the basic dynamics that underlie in any test. The basic underlying dynamics are, you need to understand that speed is important, right? This is what we spoke of at the start of the session, right? Speed of solving a question. For example, if I look at this question, if you try to do it the usual way, you would probably take 3 minutes or more. But if you do it this way, you would probably take 1 to 2 minutes in getting to the answer. So thus, जब मैं speed बोल रहा हूँ, the speed is not only of calculation, please understand. Speed also means how quickly are you able to think the right approach. That will also count under speed, right? Or question selection. So if you'll ask me, and there are so many others, time management. If you'll ask me, all these are important, more important than focusing on this. However, these will direct you to better marks, better rank, right? These will direct you to better marks and better rank. So you need to focus on this. So how do we focus on this? So how to improve? So one of the suggestions that I have is you try to group various topics together. For example, ratio, percentage, profit and loss, T and AMA, average mixture allegation, time and work, time and distance. They are all arithmetic topic, very, very similar to each other. After the other. So start with probably ratio, understand the concept, solve some question. Go to percentage, same thing, understand the concept, learn various formulae, right? Solve some questions. Go till time and distance. So this way, if you're good with ratio and percentage, for example, you generally will do well as far as T and D and T and W are concerned. So this way, try to group them and then try to focus on that particular group, right? Try to learn that group. Similarly, maybe you can group P and C probability together and try to finish them at once. So this way, grouping similar topics together is a good way to tackle the entire quant syllabus. One more thing that I cannot stress more on is daily practice, regular practice of the questions. This helps with learning new concepts and also retaining older ones. This is where the revision will become critical, right? The revision of older topics will become critical, retaining the older ones. Focus on learning new tricks, techniques, shortcuts, formulae, etc. wherever possible. For example, in the previous slide, we saw a regular question that can be solved by the usual methods can be simplified if you know a square minus b square, for example, right? So such techniques, such tricks will definitely be helping us in improving our overall learning, overall performance, all right? Traditional methods, we all know, take longer time, so don't rely on them. For example, if you have, let's say, some quadratic equation or some inequality based questions or modulus based questions, if you go by the traditional method, you might take 4-5 minutes to get to the answer. Whereas if you try to learn a new trick or technique or looking at the question, you might take a lot less. So try to learn them wherever possible. Don't rely entirely on traditional methods. One more point is test taking and analysis. Now, test taking is of course important, but analyzing your performance will be even more important. So don't ignore that whenever you're taking a test, mock test even, right? Even when you're taking mock test, ensure that after you take the test, you spend sufficient time. I think the time should be somewhere around, if your test is for X number of hours, the analysis time should be around 1.5 to 1.75 minimum X. So that means if your test is of 2 hours, you should spend around 3 to 4 hours on analysis alone, all right? uh, if you want to spend more, even better, but मैं बोल रहा हूँ इतना minimum तो होना चाहिए. Be consistent, right? Be absolutely consistent with the practice whenever you're planning to start your course, right? Here, when you're going to plan your start your plan preparation, please ensure every day matters. So let's say due to some reason you miss out on a Sunday working, try to compensate it for it by working more on the other 6 days. So be consistent, try to be consistent. If this is not possible, try to compensate for the lost time somehow. So if you try to follow all this, so basically when I say performance enhancement, I'm asking you to focus on your concepts, try to learn them well. Second thing I'm asking you to do is learn various applications. Once you're done with the concept, try to learn the applications and then test yourself. Don't forget to do this. Test taking is definitely an important thing to do, and analysis, of course, test taking and analysis. Now, I said I also have planned a few examples in today's session. So these are the questions. Now, there are some 4 or 5 questions. Maybe we'll not solve all of them, but the idea is when you look at a question, what are the give this a try, please. Try it out again. I give you a minute for this. See if you can solve the question. Let's start. We'll start the discussion. So again, I'm not expecting all of you to answer. If you're able to answer, wonderful. Otherwise, it's okay, because this might take a little longer time if you go by traditional approach. So remember in the previous slides, I was talking about traditional approach versus some innovative approaches. Now look at this question. So this question, of course, looks like a quadratic question, right? Quadratic equation question. Here I can say this is given to me. So by simplifying this, by taking LCM and all, can I say when you simplify 6x into 5x, 30x square plus 1 will be equal to 13 by 6, I say. On both sides, I can simplify by cancelling out 6. Okay, Ankan, let's see. Now simplify. Take all the terms on one side. You'll get 30x square minus 13x plus 1 equal to 0. So here if you notice, we can factorize this. 30 and 1 is 30. We can write as minus 10 and minus 3. Solve this quadratic. So I can take out 10x common. 3x minus 1 is left. And here minus 1 common. 3x minus 1 again is left. Now I can take out 3x minus 1 common. And 10x minus 1 is left. So this would mean what? Either x is 1 by 3 or x is 1 by 10. I'll substitute these values here and I try to see what is the value of the expression that we can get. So this is a usual way of solving this question. But as you can see, this is going to take some time. This is definitely going to take some time. Now, instead of this method, can we try to think of it like this? Observe. 5x plus 1 by 6x is given to be as 13 by 6, right? Take out 5 common from here. If you take 5 common from here, what will I be left with? 5 into x plus 1 by 30x. 5 into x, 5x. 5 into 1 by 30x will give you 1 by 6x. This should be equal to what? 13 by 6. Equation number 1. Now, what do I need to find out? I need to find out this. Now, take out 6 common from here. So, when I take out 6 common, what happens? 6 into, here x will be left. And again here, you will get 1 by 30x. Look at the magic here now, please. Now, we already know, I don't know what is the value of x, but I know x plus 1 by 30x is 13 by 6. Or rather, you take this 5 on the other side, you'll get what? X plus 1 by 30x is what? 13 by 6 into 5 is 30. Substitute this now, please. What is the answer we'll get? 6 into 13 by 30, which is nothing but 13 by 5. Now, if you try to solve it this way, this question should take around a minute. But if you do it this way, the regular way, the traditional way, so to say, you would take much longer time. Now, this is what I mean by picking a smarter approach over the regular traditional approach. This could be a very good example to understand that. I hope we are clear with this. Let's take one more example. Yeah, this is from functions. See if you catch the logic here. Try it out. Again, I give you a minute for this. 1 to 2 minutes, all right? Try it out. Okay, let's get started with this. So if f of x into y, xy would mean x into y is equal to x into f of y plus y into f of x. So there are some Cauchy functions that we have, all right, which if you know are really helpful, all right. This is not one of them, but there are some others, like if you have f of x into y given as f of x plus f of y, relatively simpler ones. So what can you say about the function here? What can you say about the function is, the function here should be logarithmic function, log x, k log x, for example. Similarly, if f of xy is equal to f of x into f of y, so then what can you say about the function? What type of function is f? So there are some common standard functions that we have. These are called as Cauchy. So over here, if what does it mean? So f of x, the function will be x to the power n type of function, all right? X square, x cube, x power 5, some type of function we could say. But when you look at some complex equation like this, it's very hard to determine what type of function will it be. Will it be exponential? Will it be logarithmic? Will it be your x power n type of function? What exactly will it be? It would be hard to say. So what we need to understand here is, please note, product of, so function of product of two numbers, if I take a and b, is equal to what? Is equal to x, that means a into f of b plus b into f of a is given to us. Now this a into b product can be written in more than one ways, right? For example, please note here, what are the values given to us? F of 15 is given, f of 10 is given, f of 12 is also given. What is he asking us to find out? F of 8. Now, can we note one small point here? If I ask you what will be f of 120, I'll tell you in a minute why did I focus on 120, right? What is f of 120? Can I write f of 120 as f of 15 into 8? Can I also write 120 as f of 12 into 10? Now, what is f of 12 into 10? Expand it. So, this will be equal to 12 into f of 10 plus 10 into f of 12, isn't it? And what is f of 15 into 8? It is nothing but 15 into f of 8 plus 8 into f of 15. But both these expressions should give you the same result, right? F of 120. Now, here in this, you know all the values. What is the value of f of 10? Substitute that, 6. So, 12 into 6. 10 into f of 12 is how much? 8. 10 into 8. So, this should be equal to what? This should be equal to 15 into f of 8 plus 8 into f of 15. So, 8 into 12. Now, just simplify, you will get your answer. So, can I say f of 8, the required value will be nothing but 12 into 6 is 72 plus 80 minus 8 into 12 is 96 will give you what? This will be 66 by 15. By 15. So 66 by 15, which is nothing but when you cancel out the 3 goes 22 times and 5 times. So we shall get our answer, right, as 22 by 5. All right. I hope we are clear with this. So again, in this question, it's not any concept that I'm trying to teach you, right? Nor any trick, but one small point that I'm trying to teach you is the observation. The observation was 15 into 8 is same as 10 into 12, and since we are talking about product of two variables, we can actually make use of that particular observation in this way. Now, the purpose of this question is very direct, right? But before I share the purpose, I would again give you some time in trying this out. So I give you a minute or 2 minutes, let's say. Try it out, please. Uh, 31 appears to be little on the higher side. Can you please check this again? So anyways, in this question, when we'll start the discussion in like 30 seconds, I will not be solving it out for you. I have a purpose of having this question here. I'll just be sharing that purpose, right, along with the output. Of course, I'll give you the answer. let's get started. Now, in our initial discussion, I said sometimes you need to go for some really interesting trick, all right, really unique, innovative trick in solving a question, not the usual traditional way. And I gave you an example for that. In the previous question, I showed to you that in this question, what is the importance of observation? So here, no trick was involved, but a small observation that 15 and 8 and 10 and 12 gives you the same product. You can make use of that and get answer to this seemingly difficult question, which looks difficult, but it's not that difficult once you crack that. Now here in this question, I have an entirely different objective. The objective is, here I would like to share a small formula. So if you know formula, sometimes things become really easy. That's what is the purpose of this question. So let me share the formula, and I suggest all of you to make a note of it and in your notes and regularly revise it now and then so that you remember it by the time you're done with your IPMAT. The formula is number of triangles perimeter of P with a given perimeter P is equal to, square bracket P square by 48. Square bracket P square by 48. That is the number of different types of triangles that we have. Right? Now, what does this square bracket mean? The square bracket means, by the way, before I share what square bracket means, here this formula is used when P is even. Now, what if P is odd? Then the formula slightly changes. It becomes P plus 3 the whole square by 48, square bracket. P is odd. Now, here square bracket indicates the closest integer value. Meaning, suppose you get square bracket 3.9, suppose. So square bracket 3.9, you will take the value as 4, closest integer. Suppose you get 3.2, closest formula or this formula, you will never get a case like 3.5. Don't worry about that. That's not possible because any perfect square, P square is a perfect square, right? P square will not be of the form. I'll not explain this more than this. I'll try to restrict myself to this. No P square will be of the form 48k plus 24. That is not possible. So that's not really possible, and thus you'll never get a case like this. So don't bother in case some of you had this doubt. So the square bracket is the closest integer. Once you know this, please see how quickly can you answer this question. Once you know your perimeter, I say my answer is perimeter square by 48. Why 48? Because P is even, square bracket. So 24 square by 48. So 24 goes directly 2 times, 2 will go 12 times. We'll give you the answer as 12. So the answer here, without actual counting how many triangles are there, we need not even count, and we can get to our answer with the help of this formula. So the purpose of this question was, sometimes in your competitive exams, if you know the formula for a question, things become really simple. Whereas if you don't know the formula, you can still solve it, but the thing is, you will take much more time. So here, suppose I got my answer in like 30 seconds. In the regular, traditional way, the little longer way, you would take probably what? 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, 3. That too, if you know the process. Right? I hope we are clear with this question. I hope the purpose is also clear, more importantly. Yeah, this is also a very interesting question. So here I would like to teach you something really interesting. Please give it a try, but before I share you my logic, it would definitely be helpful if you can just try it out once. Very good, Swara. Good answer, Ankan. So I think we can start with this. So Swara and Ankan, please try to respond. I'll just share my approach here. I'll not solve it fully. I'll just share the approach. Just tell me, did you do it the same way? So here it says, the question says a bike owner buys petrol at 105 rupees per liter, 110 rupee per liter, and 91 rupee per liter for 3 successive years. So that means for the first year he bought petrol at 105 per liter, 110 per liter for the second year, 91 per liter for the third year. However, he noticed that he spent 30,030 rupees each year. So here he's spending 30,030. Same here. So same here. Coincidentally, he's spending the same amount here. Now, based on this information, what I can do is, I'm not going to calculate as I told you. I know total amount spent. I know rupee per liter. I can find out volume of petrol. So in this year, the volume was 30,030 by 105. You'll get some value. Here, likewise, you can find out the volume. Here also, likewise, you can find out the volume. Now, you know the total volume for the 3 years. You know the total amount spent for 3 years. And my answer will be 30,030 into 3. Because you're talking about 3 years divided by the total volume. This should give us the answer. Is this the approach we have used, Ankan and Swara? Yeah, this is how we do it. Correct. Now let me just try to explain a really interesting point. Now if you did it like this, I am sure all of you understand the amount of effort you would have needed. So you would have also, right? The efforts are really high. Now let's try to see one small point here. Now what exactly are we doing here? Please note. So each year I'm spending 30,030 rupees. So for 3 years I'll be spending this much. And since I want to find the average cost, I need to divide this by the volume. What's the volume? Volume for the first year is 30,030 by 105. Volume for the second year is 30,030 by 110. 30,030 by 91. Now please note here in the numerator and denominator, 30,030 can be cancelled out, and effectively I'm left with something like this. I'll not simplify this, I'll not solve this. Just look at this. Now, do we all know this is nothing but harmonic mean of the 3 numbers? The 3 numbers are 105, 110 and 91. This expression is nothing but harmonic mean. I'll share the formula so that all of us are aware. Harmonic mean of n numbers is given as n by x1, sum of the reciprocals of all the terms. This is how you calculate the harmonic mean. Now here, if this is the harmonic mean, we know one more property. What's that property? Arithmetic mean is greater than harmonic mean. For 3 distinct numbers, arithmetic mean is always greater than harmonic mean. I don't know what this expression is, but this expression will be definitely less than the arithmetic mean. Now can I say, what is arithmetic mean of these 3? It's nothing but sum of the 3 numbers by 3. So this will give us what? 105, 215, 306 by 3, 102. So that means I don't know what my answer is, but my answer should be definitely less than 102. Now please realize here we successfully avoided this complex calculation. I don't know what my answer is, but it should be less than 102. I'll quickly look at the options. Now which option is less than 102? How many options? Luckily for us only one option. D will be the correct answer. And see, if such a question is asked in your IPMAT or any other competitive exam, the purpose is not actually to make you work really hard. The purpose is also sometimes, so by the way, the question that I have framed here was actually asked in one of the competitive exams with the same set of options, similar set of options rather. there was only one option which was less than this value. So that means the examiners expect you to know such approaches also, because see, eventually all of you are planning to go for management studies. So once you enter a management college, right, you are expected to be a good manager. So manager is someone who manages really well with whatever resources available to him or her. So over here, if you do it this way, we are not using our resources really well, really efficiently. Whereas if we do it like this, we are working really smart. I hope we are clear with this, how to learn these tricks. The way to learn this, all right, and more important than that is working on the concepts that we have on your own, right? Because when you do things on your own, after you understand it a little bit, you tend to experiment a lot, and once you experiment a lot, you naturally gain a lot. Is there a possibility? uh, yes, we Nagfani, yes, we do have it here, right? We do have it, we will be sharing it. We're actually working on that. We will be sharing with you, not immediately though, we are working on that. It might take some time. You can get into IIM here. Will you or not? I cannot answer that. But yes, you can get into IIM with decent efforts. Now, one final example. Just have a look at this. So this question that I have, I will not solve it. Just for your, you can maybe probably take a screenshot for this. So I have made this question specially for this session so as to drive home a point. The point is, sometimes your questions will also be testing you on your how well you observe, your observation skills. Now this question would be an example for that. Now for example, if you look at the question, is asking you how many of these 8 companies, these circles represents the companies, how many of these 8 companies compared to the previous year. So this is a question which requires absolutely no calculations. This requires only one thing, which is observation. Okay, uh, shall we try this also? Yeah. Now if you are interested, you want to do it on your own, you may, but if you want me to discuss, please do let me know. Even if one student says this, we will take it. uh, this question, Nagfani, acha, you're talking about the book. The book, I suppose, should take a few weeks here because it's still at the writing stage, right? We're still writing it, we're compiling different areas, different topics. We'll try to make it available. Maybe not sure. Okay, Ankan. So here, let's try to understand this. Since Ankan answered, let's look at it. Now, what can you say about A and G? For A and G, since both lie in the first quadrant, the change in sales was positive, change in expense was also positive. If both sales and expense are increasing, they are increasing, can we say for these two companies, actually profit may increase? Suppose, for example, for A, the sales increased by 1200 rupees, whereas expense increased by only 300 rupees. So effectively, sales are increasing more. So we could say profit could increase. Similarly, for G also, profit may increase. So for these two, profit could increase. What about these three? For these three, if you look at it, here, say change in sales is negative. That means sales are dropping, but expenses going up. If your sales drop but expenses go up, what will happen to your profit? Profit definitely comes down. So for these three companies, E, H and D, there is no chance that the profit can go up. So these three are definitely out of our list. Look at B. For B, sales is also going down, expense is also going down. So probably something like this. Think about it. If sales reduced by 200 rupees, sales have reduced, but expense reduced by suppose 500 rupees. So expenses are coming down even more. Then in that case, your profit can still go up. So here also profit probably can go up. Probably, I'm saying, I'm not sure. Here for these two, definitely profit will go up because sales are going up, expenses are coming down. So profit definitely goes up. So how many companies can see a rise in profit? These two, and this one. So my answer will be 5 for this year. So there are 5 companies which could actually see rise in profit. So this is a question which is based on only observation. So observation skills also really are important with respect to your IPMAT test. So many things. So we discussed traditional approach versus the innovative techniques. Second, we also discussed how important is the idea that strikes us, for example, with respect to this question. So the idea that the product is same, that should strike us, that is also really important. Here the formula was important. Here the property that AM is greater than HM is important. And this is an observation based question. All the questions that we have are actually on different ideas to develop as far as the QA is concerned. So just quickly, final thoughts. To wrap up, what I would like to say is learning and practicing the concepts is really critical, right? You need to learn as many things as possible because many times the concepts are interlinked. You cannot skip any concept, I'm saying. Learn the application also, because one concept can have application in different topics, right? Multiple applications. Don't forget to take the tests whenever you start your preparation. Take your tests regularly and also analyze them well, right? Learning new tricks, techniques, etc. is really important. So you could probably say this is your shortcut to success. With very less efforts, you can get better marks. Sorry, that's really possible if you do this. So one last pointer would be you keep practicing, but don't forget to revise. Also revise. So with this, I've come to the end of the session for today. If there are any questions, I would like to answer them. What is good mock test score for IPMAT? See, right now, I would try to answer it in terms of percentage, Swara, percentage score. So if you are anywhere, I'm talking about quant particularly. In quant, if you're anywhere around 40% of the marks, 45% of the marks, you're doing well. All right? In the mocks, if you're at 45% of the score, we are doing well. Even if you're lower, not really an issue. You can still, in the next few weeks, right, time, you can try. So I would say 45%. Yeah, Ankan. So what was your query here? 1 second. I think I'll have to go back. I feel that the classes are not enough to crack indoor. Ankan, of course, see, let me be absolutely, what do we say, honest about it. Is probably 35% of your success, right? So the rest 65% is your homework here. Let's accept this with deep honesty, right? So classwork is important, of course. I'm not denying that, but classwork alone is not helpful. So along with the classwork, for example, you're spending 2 hours on a class, you should go back home, spend almost 3.5 hours practicing it, the concepts and all. That must happen. Then of course we can see ourselves 2 classes per week. No, see, the number of classes and all would be decided by the management under some. We cannot discuss that here, Ankan. Yeah, that is good. Do your time books, take the test, do the handouts. That's good. Where to complain? Now speak to your center manager here. Speak to the center manager. All right, everyone. Then I think we can end it here. Thank you, and all the very best, everyone.